Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fourth webinar in the Business Essentials series, a special series for small business owners, and thank you for joining us. My name is Andrew Sykes. I'm a partner in RSM's Business Advisory Division. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we are meeting today. The Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, where our presenter, Sheenal, is based, and the Ngunnawal people of the Ngambri land, where I am, and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Today's webinar is on data analytics for small business. How can you use hidden patterns in data to analyse trends, cut costs, and increase market share, and ultimately make better decisions for your business? You may be collecting data in many forms, so how can you use it better? We're going to try and answer some of those questions, and today our session will be presented by Dr. Sheenal Srivastava, Senior Manager in our Data Analytics team. Sheenal specialises in solving intricate business challenges by harnessing the potential of data analytics and artificial intelligence. No data challenge is too big for Sheenal. With significant experience in data-led roles in retail, telecommunications, and financial services. She's got that knack for translating complex technical concepts into actionable insights. If you have any questions for Sheenal, please feel free to use a Q&A box to submit these, and we'll endeavour to answer them towards the end of the presentation. So anytime a question pops up, put it in, we'll get to it at the end. We're also recording this session, and we'll provide a link in our post-event email. It will also be available on our website and YouTube channel. I would now like to hand over to Sheenal for her to commence her presentation. Welcome, Sheenal, and looking forward to what you have to say.
Thank you, Andrew, for the introduction. So as you can tell from the title of the slide, we'll be talking about how small business owners can use data to make better decisions. So from experience, when I've spoken to business owners, small or large, a lot of business decisions are made based on gut instinct, or they're made based on years of business knowledge. But what happens if you combine this gut instinct, this business knowledge with data? Are you able to make better decisions? And this is what we will explore in today's session. So what we'll run through today is I'll give you a brief overview of what is data analytics. I'll talk about the data analytics lifecycle, so from collecting data to analyzing it. We'll also look at a couple of techniques that are used to analyze data. And then I'll go through two case studies, one on how data analytics can be used for marketing, another where you can use data analytics for taxes. And as Andrew said, I'll be answering your questions at the end of the presentation. So you may or may not have heard the term big data, but big data is basically a large volume of data that cannot be readily analyzed in what you may be used to, which is Excel. So it's a large volume of data, and it doesn't have to be numerical data. It can be unstructured data. So unstructured data can be in the form of images, it can be in the form of videos, it can be in the form of customer email, so textual data. It could be in the form of social media, so how customers interact with your organization by responding to your post. And data analytics allows you to not only analyze the structured data, which is your Excel files, but also combine this with unstructured data to have a better view of your business and its customers. So data analytics is simply taking this data, a large volume of data, both structured and unstructured, and then doing something with it to make sense out of it and using it to drive business decisions. Something going on with the slides, but we'll go back to it. So what is the point of doing data analysis? Well, data analysis provides real-time insight. So a lot of times we look at small volumes of data, but sometimes we want to look at all of it, and we want to look at it now and get the most up-to-date information. And data analysis allows you to do that. It also helps you cut costs and reduce inefficiencies. And this is by automating manual processes using data analytics. When you're looking at all of your data and you're using complex data analytics tool, you might sometimes find that there's issues with your data that you may not have noticed before, such as duplicates in your data, missing data. And this is something that you can resolve with data analytics techniques. So data analytics allows for better quality control. We'll talk about how data analytics can improve marketing results. And this has to do with understanding your customers better. So imagine if you had access to your data in real time and you were using it to automate manual processes. You had better quality data that you understood and you could trust, and you had a better understanding of your customers. That would give your business a competitive edge. So how can small businesses get started? Well, it's important to initially start with the question, why do you need data? So you start with the big data strategy, and we'll go into what that is in a bit. You then identify sources of data within your organization. And again, we'll go through where these sources are. Asking the right questions. So data analytics involves using a scientific way of approaching a problem. And then once you have all your data, you need to have a system to access, manage, and store this data. Following that, this is where your data analyst or your data scientist come in, and they analyze your data with the right tools. Once you have all of this data, it's only meaningful if you can tell a story with the data. And this is once you're able to tell the story, this involves communicating the message from the data to make better decisions. So using data to derive insights. So going back to the first step, your data strategy should be aligned to your vision or your company's goals and objectives. And it usually starts with a business's challenges or pain points. So say, for instance, you're concerned about customers that are leaving. Your marketing campaigns may not be working. And this may all be due to because you don't understand your customer base. And this is now impacting various parts of your business. So it's impacting supply chain. It's impacting your inventory control because you have all these products lying around that are hard to sell and you're unable to bring in new products. Marketing campaigns are not working, and it's also impacting operations. So how would you then use data to meet your business objective? And this is where as a scientist, we usually come up with a statement, and the statement is called hypothesis. And it's a statement about how you want to reach your goals, and it's very specific. And so you might say, I want to use data to determine how to increase my customer base by a certain percentage, or optimize my sales by a certain percentage, or actually use data analytics to forecast my sales revenue better. So once you have your hypothesis, this is where you then start looking for data. And you may think, oh, I have data in my sales system. But actually data is everywhere. Data is captured on your website. So Google Analytics, it can tell you how many people are visiting your website, how many people are clicking on an item and then leaving the website, how many people are clicking on an item, adding it to their shopping cart and leaving, or they're actually converting it into a sale. You have data on your social media, so you might be advertising using Instagram or Facebook. How many likes do you get? How many people interact with it? How many people actually interact with it? Click on the link, go onto your website and purchase the product. Vendor systems like your HR systems might have data. Your e-commerce tool might have data. There's actually data also in your customer feedback. Yes, it's unstructured, it's textual, but that may tell you a lot about your customers. Now you might be like, I don't do any social media, I don't have a website, I'm a bricks and mortar business. But you do have Google, you might be on Google and you definitely have customer feedback there. But there's also publicly available data to understand your customers. So there's ABS data, which will tell you average household spend. It will tell you where people live, what do they do, how much money they make, what gender they are, age groups, and so on. Then there's IoT devices. So for instance, your water usage, your electricity usage is all captured by something called Internet of Things that allows you to look at your electricity usage all in real time. And this again captures information. So once you know your data, once you have your data question and you have your data, you then want to again start asking additional questions like a scientist. So questions such as, I have my data, but how do I ensure data quality? How can I even rely on this? And what KPIs am I measuring? What kind of software will I use? How many people will I need to hire to get this, the data analytics done? And who will I be telling my data story to? Who will I be presenting to? And how will my results be used? So if I can understand my customers better, I will then need to approach the marketing team to then work on a marketing campaign. So these are all questions that you want to start thinking about at the beginning before you deep dive into your data. Once you have your data, you then need to figure out a way to store and manage this data. So a lot of organizations use on-premise storage. So they store the data onto servers on their that's located within the organization. I've also seen organizations that store all the data on their laptop, which is not reliable because you're dependent upon a single person. And with big data, sometimes it takes up too much space. Off-premise storage is also an option, but what businesses are now beginning to do is use cloud storage. And the reason for that is because data can be accessed from anywhere. You can scale up or down depending on how much you use. You also don't have to use physical machines like your laptop or your desktop computer to access the data. You can pay for something called virtual machines, where the data can be accessed anywhere and also be analyzed from anywhere on these virtual machines. Furthermore, these cloud storage companies like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure provide robust controls to protect your data. So once you have your data and you've stored it, this is where your data analyst or your data scientist comes in. They perform a process called ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load. So you may have data in all these systems, like your e-commerce system, on your website, on Instagram posts, on CSV files. And this is where the data scientist or data analyst will come in and extract all this data from the various systems and put it together in one location. And in order to do that, they will try and look for links between these data sets. This is called the transform procedure. So say, for example, you have your sales data, you have information on your customers from your rewards data. They then match the customers based on this unique customer number or name or additional fields to match the customers to understand which of your customers are using the rewards program and what are they purchasing. You might also attach this information to information you get about their interactions on your website or social media posts. So this transformation step is where you're putting different data sources together and then you're cleaning the data. So this is where you're getting rid of duplicates. You're trying to understand why information is missing. You're applying business rules to better understand this data. And you're also looking for information that might seem incorrect. For example, unusually large or small values, which are called outliers in statistics. And this may also help you understand your customers better, or they could actually be data errors that often happen from manual entry. Once the data is all put together, so transform, it's then loaded onto your storage solution. so that it can then be readily visualized in a dashboard or analyzed. So I really like this quote here where you can have all this data and you've transformed it, but how do you actually extract value from it? Well, the way to extract value from it is if you can use it to tell a story and influence decision. So you have to be able to tell a story to inspire action. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have all the different data sources. It's then gone into this data warehouse where we've done the ETL, but now we need to tell a story. And often stories from data are told using graphs, so visualization techniques and tables. But the next slide will give you some tips and tricks on telling a good story. So you can see here that we have two graphs, and the first graph really stands out because it's visually appealing. So the colors are visually appealing, but also because it's talking about the height of each building, but it's represented by a graph, by the icon of the building itself. And you can immediately tell from looking at it that Burj Khalifa is the tallest building. You can also tell that all the buildings vary in height by about 100 meters, but the one in Dubai actually varies by almost 200 meters, and that's quite easy to tell. This graph also has a really good title. It tells you that the people that created this slide are presenting to someone that is interested in the World Trade Center located in New York, and they're comparing it against the other buildings. So a lot of information is, you can get a lot of information just from a graph, but you have to present it well. With the second graph, this is all about how it's really important to look at information, look at historical information. So say, for example, I was making a decision where a lot of businesses will make decisions on the previous year. But say you made a decision based on 5 years, you would be able to tell which curve you want to choose for better cumulative cash flow and payback. So you can see that both curves get to the same end in 5 years, but which one becomes positive first? And that's the one you probably want to go with. But you wouldn't know that unless you actually looked at 5 years worth of data. So this is where data can help you make better decisions. So when you think about telling a story, you're telling the story to actually make a decision. So maybe modify your marketing campaign, maybe come up with a new product line, increase revenue, maybe automate a process to increase operational efficiency, and make quicker decisions and better decisions. So when you use data to make decisions, what you're doing is you're making sure that your business remains fair, because the decisions that you're making are based on data rather than gut intuition. They're goal-oriented because you started off with the big data strategy that was oriented towards a business challenge or a business pain point, and you came up with a hypothesis that was focused on improvement. And we went through this ETL process where you were able to transform the data to come up with quality data. So therefore you can make robust decisions or confident decisions because you can now rely on your data. Additionally, if you make a decision based on data, it's less likely to be biased. So here there's 3 examples of where data analytics has been used to drive decisions in 3 different sectors. So we talked about how businesses can use website-based data, and a lot of e-commerce businesses use information on how customers are interacting with their website. So they look at metrics such as what customers click through on their website, how many customers arrive and leave their website, to identify what items they're engaging with the most. They can also use this information to then change their website. And there's techniques like A/B testing, where you can change the structure or how your website is organized to ensure more customers visit your website and click on the things you want them to click on. Healthcare is another example where data analytics is quite useful. So how often have you gone to a doctor with a problem, and the doctors had to sit there, read the notes, and then come back to you, or the doctors asked you a question and they've asked you that over and over again, and it's getting annoying. However, if your electronic health records were used to analyze patterns, and then the doctor was provided information when you visited the doctor, and the doctor knew, for instance, hey, you know what, Bob, you visited me every month for this year, and it's for the flu. Why don't you get a flu vaccine? And I already know you're here because you have the flu. So that's how data analytics could be useful. And we've already talked about how, and we'll also talk about this in our case study, where you can use customer data to improve your marketing campaign and target the right customers. So that was using data, visualizing it, and telling a story. But you can go one step further, and that's through something called machine learning. So machine learning is basically the process of where a machine learns from the data. So it takes a large volume of data and it looks for underlying patterns or trends, and then does something called prediction. So it can predict. So you may look at your sales data, say over 5 years, and use that to make a decision about your forecast for next year, or you could use a machine learning model that could do it for you. And not only would it look at sales data in silo, but you could combine that data with your customer data, with your customers interacting on your website, customer feedback, with your inventory data, put it all together. And your machine learning model would not only forecast the sales, but it would tell you what's driving it. So it would tell you, in machine learning, we call these features. So there are variables that may be driving your sales. For example, it could be the day of the month, or the time of the year, or it could be the weather. And machine learning allows you to do that. Then there's AI. So AI, or artificial intelligence, often gets confused with machine learning, but it's not the same. Artificial intelligence is mimicking human behavior using machines. And we would have all been exposed to this with chatbots. So often we'll be logging onto a website and something will pop up asking us if we need help. And that's all there to reduce human effort. We also may be exposed to virtual assistants, or even Siri, for example. And then there's self-driving cars that are there to mimic human behavior. But the most recent thing is generative AI. So this is not only mimicking human behavior, but also going one step beyond, which is generating new content. So if you've ever used Copilot or ChatGPT, you can ask it to even create this presentation for you by giving it some prompts. And it will do this by looking for information all over the internet to come up with something unique. So now we dive into our first case study. How can you use data analytics for improving your marketing strategy? So customer segmentation is actually dividing your customer into distinct groups based on similar traits or behaviors. So you might have a one-stop approach to approaching all your customers, but might not be working. And this is why it's important to understand your customers based on segments, because customers in a different age bracket or a different income threshold are likely to buy different products compared to another customer segment. And this is where customer segmentation becomes useful. So how do we start? Well, we again go back to the data analytics lifecycle. You begin by collecting data on your customers. You want to know where your customers are located. And a lot of times you can get this from where your customers are accessing your website. So you don't really need to ask them for this information. This is why we have cookies. You can also get demographic data. Again, this is not something you need to ask customers when they sign up, for example. So you may ask them this information when they sign up to log into your website to purchase a product or sign up for your rewards program. But this kind of information is also available through the ABS data sets. Behavioral data is something you can get from how customers interact with your social media post or how they interact with your website. Things like information about their lifestyle, activities, again, that's something you can get from social media or from publicly available data sets. Once you have all this data, this is where the ETL process comes in, where you begin to combine this data and explore it, looking for any information that you can get from this data before you go into the modeling phase or applying machine learning. During the data preparation stage is also where you confirm some of your gut intuition or your findings to ensure that the data is clean and robust and is telling you what is sort of telling you what you already know. The method that we often use for customer segmentation is something called k-means clustering. We don't need to dive into it, but all it does is it takes all that data and it assumes that you know nothing about your customers. And then based on similarities between the customers, it splits them into clusters or groups. Once you have these clusters or groups, you then need to tell the story. And you can tell a story by using a dashboard or talking about key insights and maybe possibly relating the findings to key performance indicators in your organization, and even using that to understand some root causes about your data or looking for operational efficiencies. So here we have an example of where this business owner has a customer, has a product, and wants to make money, but doesn't really understand their customers. So then he runs machine learning or k-means clustering and comes up with multiple groups. And you will see on the right-hand side that the k-means clustering algorithm has divided the customers into 5 groups. So you can see that most of the customers for this particular business owner have high income and or medium to high income, and they're usually in the trade profession or they're highly skilled professionals. So this particular business is not doing well for these 3 segments. They're not doing well at targeting these segments. So maybe their next marketing campaign could be about targeting these segments. They could also additionally build a algorithm or another machine learning algorithm to identify, okay, what kind of products are these customers buying and these customers, and how much are they spending on average, and what are these customers buying, and what can we do to get them to buy these particular products. So it gives you insight into which segments to target, and maybe even modify your price or your product line based on and all you have here is an algorithm that's simply split your customers into groups, and you may not even known or even ever looked at your customers this way. Now that was a made-up example, but we've done at RSM, we have done customer segmentation for several customers so that they can understand their clients better. But the next one is actually one where, because RSM is an organization where we provide tax services, accounting services, and consulting services, here our analytics team has worked with the tax team to do GST data analytics. And the reason for this is because from the financial year of 2023, the ATO put in some rules around performing GST data analyses and made it mandatory for some taxpayers. And they introduced more than 30 tests to use analytics to analyze GST data. And the reason for this is so that they can trust the returns that businesses put in, but also ensure that you're assigning the right GST codes, making sure that the duty tax that's applied is correct, making sure the transfer pricing methods that you've applied are correct. And this can be quite time consuming for a small business, especially if you're working on a small subset of data. This is where data analytics comes in, because we've talked about big data, and GST data analytics allows you to analyze all of this data. And we have a 6-step method for helping businesses with GST data analytics. Initially, we run a workshop where our tax team and the data analytics team works with an organization to understand their big data strategy. So what are they aiming to get out by doing the data analytics for their taxes? And it could be that they want to ensure that they're able to satisfy ATO requirements, but only for a small section of the test, So it may not be for all the tests because you're already confident about some of your data. So it could be, I only want to look at a small number of these tests. And at the moment, we're doing this manually on a small subset of data, but we want to do this for all of our data. Our team can then help you extract this data and then run ETL, which is where we cleanse it and put it together so that we can run our test. So RSM works closely with our tax team to analyze this data. We use the tax experts to gain a better understanding of the data and make sure that what we're presenting is correct. We then visualize this analysis in a dashboard, and this is where the data storytelling aspect comes in. The business can then use this information to then make decisions and discuss and agree on next steps. So here we have an example of a dashboard where you can, here on the left-hand side, you can choose certain tests and you can determine whether or not the information that you've provided has failed or passed these tests. You can also look at invoices based on their GST registration. And you can also check whether the GST registration was unavailable. So this is something that might be flagged by ATO, and this is something you can already see even before going to the ATO just by using a dashboard. You can also look at your data over time. So, and you may not want to look at it just for a year, but over several years. You can look at where the issues are by looking at individual invoices as well. And then you can look at how many records you looked at in total, individual invoices, and so on. So you can look at summary statistics as well. So there's a lot of information in a single dashboard or a single page that you can't simply do with an Excel pivot table or an Excel spreadsheet. So the benefits from GST analytics is savings on GST, making sure that because you've tested it on all your data, this is where big data comes in. And now you have complete assurance of your data and data that you can rely on. Moreover, we can run all 30 or more standard ATO tests using data analytics. Furthermore, generally a 5% duty is applied, but we can help you identify whether this has been applied correctly and whether it can be reduced. Moreover, we can help you with transfer pricing adjustments. And if any of this information is incorrect, then you are liable for strict offenses. So this is why it's really important to make sure that you understand your data and it is correct and you're making decisions that are based on good quality data. So how can you get started? Well, we do have a data analytics team at RSM, and we don't, and in the example that I showed you, we do work with other teams in the organization, like our internal audit team, like our tax team, to ensure that we have the right business knowledge to approach your problem. And as you've seen, data analytics can help our clients because we treat your data as an asset. We make sure that that data in your organization is reliable and trustworthy to make decisions. We use machine learning to understand the past and even maybe predict the future. And by creating something like a dashboard that shows real-time information, you're able to embed this data analytics practice in your organization and use it on a daily basis to see whether to maybe track against your KPIs to ensure that you're making data-driven decisions. So data analytics can make sure that you're confident about your decisions, you're compliant. So in the case that we saw with GST analytics, you're compliant with ATO requirements, you're protecting yourself against risk, and you're also improving business performance. And so now we come to an end. So I'll hand it over to Andrew and myself. I'm just going to look through and see if there were any questions.
We did get a question through. Thank you, Sheenal. From Bruce, we've got a question here. It's a really good one. Customer segmentation. How to use if database does not have information on each customer. So, and questioning whether that should be a CRM.
So when you're saying your database doesn't have information on each customer, we can use publicly available data to understand your customers. So we can get data from, say, ABS, if that helps. So depends on what type of information you're looking for. So say you're coming up with, so I'll give you an example. Recently, we did a project for a business that distributes movies, and they want to understand what kind of movies to show in different cinemas. But they have information. They have some information on their customers from their loyalty program, but it's very messy, or should I say dirty. There's hardly anything there. There's duplicates in there. So what we did was we took ABS data, and ABS data has information on customers based on their location, and it tells you what people are spending money on. So what kind of entertainment are they spending money on? And it has it by location, age, and gender. Additionally, there's websites like Screens Australia that collect information on how much customers spend on average on movie tickets. So you might think that you don't have the data, but remember, the internet has a lot of information about you, and it's tracking it all the time.
So generally, you can go and source some data. Tell me, Sheenal, is that data generally, is it free to use, or do you have to incur a cost?
So usually you can when the data is publicly available, you can read their terms and conditions, and they will allow you to use their data sets. So Screens Australia actually allows you to download their data sets. ABS also provides them for free. Some websites, they do say things like, if you use our data and it's for commercial purposes, you need to pay. But if you're doing it for a research activity, then they don't charge a cost.
Okay, excellent. So we've got another question that's come through there, and just a reminder, we do have time for more questions if anyone has any. But the next question we have is, could you elaborate how this can be applied in terms of improving cost efficiencies and how we can track the impact of data analytics on our business?
Okay, so I guess cost efficiencies depends on the particular question. So let's go back to marketing. Say you have a marketing campaign that you've been running and it's not working, and you actually don't know why it's working, but now you understand your customers better. So now you make a marketing campaign that's for a particular customer segment, and this is where you're likely to reap value from it. So you have a targeting marketing campaign rather than a generic marketing campaign. Or you're noticing, for instance, that your customers here are not spending that much money, and neither are they here. And you come up with a marketing campaign that are targeting these customer segments. And then this increases your customer base. So in a way, you've gotten value from having a more targeting marketing campaign. And there's an operational efficiency because your marketing team is not creating marketing campaigns that are not reaping any value. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And then further, how would we track the impact of data analytics on a business?
So this is where you'd have something like a dashboard. So you'd have your spend, and we do this for a lot of organizations, where how much have you spent on your marketing campaign and how much revenue have you gotten, and has this changed? So when your marketing campaigns came out, when did you see the increase in sales, and how quickly did you see it? And you would monitor this on your dashboard and see whether it's actually worked.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. And so our next question we've got is, could data analytics, or ML, provide value to a medical/hospital business? Could you give a follow-through example? And so if you've got an example where it's been used in a medical hospital business, that'd be great.
Actually, we were just discussing this in our team meeting before about hospitals where people go in with a certain problem, like an appendicitis, and they come out with a scissor in their stomach, and or they'll go in to get their left eye, cataract operation, and they'll walk out with a cataract operation on their right eye. And apparently this is happening 30% of the time. And this is where data analytics may be useful, because it could be that the codes that are assigned to these particular treatments are incorrect and they need to be reassigned correctly. But the hospital has a large volume of data. Nobody has time to look at this manually. And this is where data analytics comes in to make sure. And it can also quickly look at this data and actually find out these customers or these patients that went in that were incorrectly treated, and then actually do something about it. But you wouldn't be able to do this on, if you didn't have someone that could actually analyze this volume of data quite quickly.
And that would flow through to Medicare charging, etc., wouldn't it, for the business side of it?
Definitely.
Yeah. Now we have another question here from Ian. Do you provide anonymous segment comparatives, i.e. your client seems to be hitting/falling behind business in similar industries? So that would be benchmarking comparative kind of data.
I guess that the benchmarking data is available online. So usually when we speak to clients about particular usage of how data analytics may help them or increase sales or revenue, we will use information that's publicly available. For instance, at the moment, we're speaking to a Malaysian telecom company about using data analytics to sell not only just mobile phones, but actually sell packages like mobile and broadband packages, and why it's important to use data analytics. And we're using information that's publicly available about other telecom companies in Asia that are using analytics and how it's increased revenue for them and by how much and what have they done. And we'll use this information.
So that sort of benchmarking data would just be another set of data that you can measure against. So much like you mentioned ABS before, it's just another data set you would use in an analysis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't have any more questions there, Sheenal, and we're just coming to the end of our allocated time. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and we hope that you found the session of value. I'd also like to thank you, Sheenal, for your time and sharing your knowledge and expertise. If anyone does have any further questions that come through, you can get in touch directly with Sheenal or send an inquiry through the RSM website. You can also register for upcoming sessions in the Business Essentials series. And do you have a QR code there that you can put up for that, Sheenal, at the end of the deck there? Our next session is on 16 October, and we'll explore one of the most critical aspects of running a small business, and that is cash flow management, with our director, Alicia Bailey. We hope to have your company again then, and thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to register for that website, go to rsm.com.au and you'll see a link there to be able to register. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheenal, and look forward to seeing you all again at our next website. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew.